Kohanim Appleton.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. This is always an awesome Shabbat. So I look around and I look at the demographic that's in the room today. What happened to all the men? Where did they go? There's a lot of women in here, which is befitting because our Parashah today is Hayyei Sarah. All right? Which is a beautiful thing. It's like we're going to have a women's meeting here today. I want to preface what I'm saying today by starting out and saying this. Today is going to be hard, okay? 2 disclaimers. There's going to be some subject matter that's going to be talked about today that is very taboo. Some subject matter that is not liked in modern day 2021 Gregorian calendar culture. Is going to be very much diametrically opposed to that. Okay? All right. This subject matter has some issues in it when I get to chapter, and I'm putting a disclaimer out for those, and I kind of queried some of the people that were in the room already. It has some subject matter when we get into chapter 24 and chapter 25 that I would deem a little bit higher than PG-13. So if you have some issues or you have children that are around that are not ready for some of the things that have to come up from an adult perspective, I want to preface that right now, just so you have a basis for where I'm going today. It's some serious subject matter. We're going to try to be as lighthearted as we can, but I just need to make those disclaimers first. Ameen? Ameen. So I'm going to give you ample opportunity. If you got sensitive ears, I'm getting ready to go there today. I'm getting ready to burn them today. Okay? All right. 2 things before we get started today. We got a lot of subject matter to get through. There are 3 chapters we got to get through today. I always want to start out by giving you a basis of where we've been, okay? Today, our main characters are going to be the main character in here is Yitzhak and his father Yaakov, and we also have Rivka is in this as well, his Yitzhak's wife. I want to start out by saying this. Who's narrating this whole entire set of chapters? Moshe. Let's not lose sight of that. Last time I got up and spoke, I made it very emphatically clear that you need to keep in mind who's narrating this, okay? Moshe has spent a lot of time with the Most High. I don't want to necessarily believe that a lot of this information that Moshe is having has been passed down. You know, when Moshe is in the tent of meeting and he says that I speak to the Most High face to face, not face to face literally, because that brings up a point. Because Scripture also talks about from the hand of Moshe that anybody that sees the face of the Most High cannot live. Which brings a question up as to why I can see the face of Jesus and still live if he's God. Or when the transfiguration actually happened and he showed himself to folks, how come they're not dead? No one can see the face of the Father and live. Okay? Moshe is in the presence of the Most High. When the Most High appears, it's the presence of the Most High. And he's speaking to Moshe, his servant, like he's a friend. So he's telling him, this is how I created the heavens and the earth. This is how I created the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the animals and the people. This is how this came to be. And I'm imparting this information into you. So here, this is information because Moshe, this is a couple generations, a lot of generations before Moshe actually hits the scene. So we need to keep in mind who's talking, who's narrating, okay? The other thing that we need to keep in mind here today is I want to change your attitude about Abraham. Abraham is what? Tell me about Abraham. What do you know about him? Father Abraham had many sons. Y'all don't know the rest of the song? All right. That's just the right arm, left. That's all you know? Is that song? What else? What do you know about him? From the land of Chaldeans. What else you know? Father of many nations. What else? He's a Hebrew. His father's a worshiper. Oh, idol worshiper. What else? Faithful to the Most High. Okay. Father Abraham also was going to sacrifice his son. He was faithful to the Most High and listened to every word that the Most High had said. But I want to change the way you think about him for a little bit. Father Abraham is extremely wealthy. He is extremely rich. We're talking about whoever is, I want to use this pejorative person, Bill Gates being and who's the guy that owns Amazon, the billionaire. He's like that guy of his time. He is a very rich individual. Okay? All right? But the one thing that you need to take away from Abraham before we get started with this is that Abraham is very dangerous when it comes to being methodical. This guy, if you're sitting down with him, he's always 4 or 5 moves ahead of you. Anybody remember when I got up and did my dissertation, I talked about Abraham and he had this issue with Abimelech and he says, okay, since you don't want to honor this and I've paid for this well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to plant this tamarisk tree right here. And people said, okay, what's the point for the tamarisk tree? To commemorate that you bought this well? No, the tamarisk tree was there because you didn't honor what I told you to honor when I came to you. So I'm going to plant this tree right here. And what's this tree going to do? A tamarisk tree needs 200 gallons of water a day. The tamarisk tree sucked all the water up out of the well, so nobody could use it. Abraham is methodical. I want you to keep that in mind. So when we look at this parashah over these 3 chapters that we got to deal with, I want you to look at the whole entire picture. I don't want you to look at the trees. I want you to look at this is a methodical person. Okay? One last disclaimer before we get started. There's going to be some subject matter in here that is very close to the chest. Meaning, in the old church, we had this thing where the pastor got up there and sometimes you thought the pastor was preaching on you. He knows that situation. You think I'm preaching on you. And you have some attitude in some type of way that you felt about it. I'm going to tell you this right now. There are going to be subject matters today that's going to hit home. And I mean right at your front doorstep. I am not talking about you. I'm talking about what is in Scripture. If it shows up at your front door, then it shows up at your front door. I'm not talking about your situation. You're not that important to be putting over top of Scripture. Hey, Alvin. My wife knows what that means. Okay, let's get into this today. So, just now that we laid the groundwork, I've got you all squared away. We're getting ready to get into this rated R. No, subject matter, no. First things first, let's go over the overview on what we're going to talk about today. There are 3 chapters. It spans from Bereshit 23. For those of you that are getting acclimated to Hebrew, Bereshit is the name for Genesis. Okay? Bereshit chapter 23. In chapter 23, Abraham's wife Sarah dies. It's good. Second thing that happens in chapter 23, Abraham buys the family burial site in Canaan. That's what happens. Chapter 23. Chapter 24, Abraham sends his servant to find Yitzhak a wife. That's what happens in chapter 24. Rivka is chosen and becomes the wife of Yitzhak. That's what happens in chapter number 24. There's some subject matter at the top of chapter 24 that is a little adultish, okay? And I have to explain it. It's already been brought out by one of the former Kohanim that were here already. You've heard this already, but I'm going to reiterate it. Okay? Chapter 25, finishing up here, Abraham marries another wife. Abraham dies and gives all he owns to Yitzhak. And then we also have the genealogy of Yishmael and his death. So it happens in that particular chapter 25. All right. One of the things I also like to do is make sure that we continue to jump into our Hebrew so you stay sharp. Because last time when I got up and spoke, I said that in order to understand some of the colloquialisms that are actually in Scripture, you're going to have to know a little bit of Hebrew. And it's good to understand how to at least say it and then be able to kind of find it. Okay? So this is a word. Anybody know what that word is? Oh my goodness gracious. And you don't even need any vowels. That is astonishing. All right. In Hebrew, if you are new to it, Hebrew is, and how to read this is C. Oh boy, come on. Let's get the pen. It is C plus V equals S. That is your formula in order to figure that out. It is your consonant plus your vowel equals the sound. All right. And in Hebrew, we read from right to left, and you're looking down. Doing at the same time. So when we read this, we don't read it like Hebrew word study. We read it this way. Okay? We read it from yamin to shmol, or right to left. I want to put, those are all the consonants that are up there. I'm going to put all of the vowel markings up there so you can see how we get this. Okay? So we got that. Make sure I do this right. I do this all the way right. Okay. Very good. All right. Let's take this one at a time. And already off the bat, even if I took that off, what's that word in the front? Av, which is the word for what? Father. Very good. Very, very good. Okay. Let's do this. In Hebrew, that first character is an aleph. The aleph is silent. It doesn't make a sound. So we're going to just write a line right there because it doesn't make a sound. Like I said, the next one, since we're taking care of the aleph, we got to go straight, look straight down. That little line underneath there is an ah. It makes an ah sound. So the first one is ah. So we got that consonant plus the vowel. The vowel markings are these guys underneath. Next consonant is the vet. And it makes the V sound, right? Very good. Now we have a schwa underneath that. That means that cuts that sound all the way off. When you see a schwa being preceded, this is what this is called, these two little dots above each other. When you see a schwa being preceded by another vowel, then it is silent. So I'm going to draw a line right down there. Ooh, boy, that does not look good like a dotted line. All right? So I'm consonant, which is silent, the vowel, which is the ah. Consonant, which is the V, the schwa, because of the rule, is silent. That's why I drew that line there. So we've taken consonant plus the vowel. Some wise person said if you work a problem according to the rule, you'll get what? The right answer. All right. Next consonant is a resh. It makes a R sound. Underneath that is another vowel. It makes the ah sound as well. Then we go on to the next one. This is a hey. It makes the H sound. What's the vowel underneath that? It makes an ah sound. And then we end off the word with a mem sophit. These are special characters in Hebrew that take on a different form with that when they're at the end of words. That is a mem sophit, so he ends off with the M. So we have Avraham. That's how you get that. All right? Everybody knows how to read Hebrew. Let's do another example real quick. Who's that? Why do I even need to put the vowels up here? Are you guys? Wow, I'm underestimating how good you guys are. I am so sorry. So this is not for anybody that's in the room. This is for you that are out there watching in TV land on the video scope, like Rando Macho Man said. Let's go over this one. Let's put the vowels up here. And this word is Yitzhak. This is his son. Okay? Yitzhak has a little dot underneath that yod. And it has another schwa. And then it has, like his dad. And then it has that. And then that's it. All right. So let's do this. Remember, consonant plus the vowel equals a syllable. We read from Hebrew from Yamin to Shmuel. That means from right to left. And we're looking down generally. Okay, first consonant is this yod, smallest character in the Hebrew alphabet. It makes a Y sound. Okay, the next one is this E sound. That's the vowel, that little dot. So it makes the E sound. And then we have a Sadiq, which makes the TS sound. That's the consonant. Then we have a schwa underneath that. What did I just tell you about the rule about schwas? If it's being preceded by a vowel, it's silent. Dot, dot. There you go. Next consonant is what? A chet. Het. CH is what that consonant is in English. And then we have the little T underneath it, which makes the ah sound. And then we have what at the end? Kuf. Okay? Some people pronounce this as a Q. Some people pronounce this as a K. I like to think of it more of a K as a K sound. So you say his name, Yitzhak. That's how you say that. Yitzhak. All right? We all good to go. Good to go. Oh, bobbleheads, 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 bobbleheads. Good, 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 good. If you don't, go back and watch the video. We can rewind it. All right. Let's start here. Chapter number 23. Bereshit, chapter number 23. Starts out with the death of Sarah. Who was here last week in the back when we were having a little cake for our rabbi? Who was back there? Almost darn near everybody in here. What did I say? I said, this is going to be a good segue because what your rabbi was doing was being very cathartic about his feelings about the loss of his wife. Did you notice how heavy that was? I want to put you in that mode right now. That's where your mind needs to be. If you were here last week, think about that heavy mood that was back there. He just lost his wife. That's a pain, he said, that you don't want to experience. You have to go through it if you're married, but understand it is a pain. Sarah dies at the age of 127. What do you know about Sarah? Come on. She was beautiful. She was very beautiful. Come on. She was wise. What else? She was a teacher. What else? One more. She was barren for a while. That's good. That's where I'm getting ready to go. Okay. Everybody realizes that was Sarah was not her real name. What was her real name? Sarai. Her name was Sarai. Just like her husband's name was changed, so was hers. Sarai's original name was Sarai, or Sarah's original name was Sarai, and it meant mockery. That's what her name meant. It meant mockery. The Most High changed her name to Sarai to mean princess. It's going to make a little bit of sense on why when we get Abraham later on in this chapter gets in front of the sons of Het, and they call him something. So, to substantiate what I'm saying, and I'm going to say this too before I go here. Anytime that you get in front of a teacher, okay, they should be doing a couple of different things. They should be giving you information in context, not taking a scripture and springboarding off of it to tell you something that you want to hear. It has to be in context. All right? So, to prove my point, this is tough for you guys to see, but Sarai in the Hebrew is right here. And it's in this verse where it says, and Yahweh said to Abraham, Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her by Sarai, but Sarah will be her name. And Sarah in Hebrew means princess. You can find that in Parashah 17 and 15, just so you don't think I'm up here making this up. Okay? Now, with the death of his wife, Abraham is posed with an issue that he has to deal with. He has to deal with burying his wife. Now, for whatever reason, Abraham has not made these arrangements prior to this particular time. Now, you got to understand, during that time, it's different from the burial processes that are going on today, right now. Okay? Does everybody know that our burial processes that we go through right now, because it's very different, is more African than anything else? Your burial processes come out of a place called Mitzrayim, called Egypt. When a person passes away and you put them in a casket and you bury them, that is Egyptian. Okay? Scientific researchers and archaeologists have uncovered ancient Mesopotamian burial vessels made of cloth, wood, and paper. Ancient Egyptian kings and major political figures were buried in large, ornate caskets known as sarcophagus. Embalming is a method of preventing the body from decaying. It is accomplished by the application of chemical preservatives. Unlike the Torah's viewpoint, which requires the dead person or the person that's passed away body to be permitted to decompose in a natural way. If you want to look that up, that's in Parashah 3 and 19. The Egyptian idol worshippers tried to make their bodies, or at least their bodies of their leaders, immortal. To accomplish this, they embalmed the corpses and wrapped them in layers after layers of linen bandages. So just know that it's different. All I'm doing is just bringing your attention to the fact that the way things were done back in Moshe's time is not the way we're doing them right now. Okay? And I'm just looking at it from a Torah perspective. Okay? Again, Sarah dies in the land of Canaani. What's significant about the name of Canaani? Who's the descendant? Canaani is a descendant of whom? I just talked about it last time I got up here. There were Ham, very good. One of the three sons that came with Noah on the ark. So this is the land that is established by Canaani. She dies in that land. Abraham weeps for his wife. Doesn't say how long he weeps for, but we know it couldn't have been a long time because he has to deal with this body now. Okay? So what he does is he goes in front of this council. They're called the sons of Het. Now, on this particular instance, you got to know how powerful this guy is. He's assembling this council to deal with his wife's body, and he's doing it on very short order. Okay? Now, let's get into this. He goes to these individuals, the sons of Het, and he says, look, I need to bury my wife. And I need to bury her in a particular place that I want to put her. And I want to petition you guys, and I want to actually understand, how much it's going to cost to buy this plot of land. The response comes back and says, listen, Abraham, you are a prince among us. You're a prince of Yahweh. Which is funny because, not really funny, but it's very, very nice because her name shall be princess. So we have the prince and the princess. You're a prince among us. Matter of fact, let's go to that real quick. Because he says, listen, you're a prince among us. You can have anything you want. We'll gift this thing to you. You don't have to pay us for anything. Just because of who you are, we're going to give this to you. Bereshit 23:5, the sons of Het answered Abraham, listen to us, my Lord. When it says that, that's like respect. Okay? You are a prince of Yahweh among us. So choose any of our tombs to bury your dead. Not one of us will refuse his tomb for burying your dead. Now, what did I tell you about Abraham? Anytime this man is getting in front of you, he's 5 steps ahead of you. Okay? You'll see why at the end of this chapter. Abraham, out of respect, bows in front of the sons of Het, and he says to them, I want this particular cave in the field of Machpelah. Okay? This particular cave was owned by an individual named Ephron, the Hittite. Now, the sons of Het knew Yahweh. They hadn't been a very long time since Noah got off the boat, off the ark. So Yahweh is still pretty much a buzz name that's still out there. People haven't gotten away from that yet. So after the great deluge, people know about this already. This has been passed down from generation to generation. Abraham bows in front of the sons of Het, which is interesting because the sons of Het just proclaim that he's a prince in front of Yahweh. This is, again, done out of respect. And this is really quintessential for Abraham to establish this. Why? Why does he have to buy this land, buy this cave? He's killing 2 birds at 1 stone. He's buying this cave in the Canaanite for a reason. If you remember prior to this, the Most High makes a covenant with Abraham and said, I'm going to make your descendants very, very large, and they're going to occupy the land of the Canaanite. They're going to occupy this land. So it's important for him to secure this deal. Okay? So in the presence of everyone, Ephron actually is, which is a person that was on this particular council. Ephron says to Abraham, what is it between you and I about this particular piece of land? It's nothing. It's a nothing land. Just take it. Abraham says, no, I want to buy it. He says, you know what? This land's worthless. It's only about 400 shekels. 400 shekels is only 10 pounds of silver. Okay? Now, this is reiterated when we go to Bereshit chapter 23, verses 14 through 15. He says, but Ephron answered Abraham and said, my Elohim, listen to me. He says, look at that. He says, my Lord. It's out of respect. Listen to me. A plot of land is worth 400 shekels. What is that between me and you? Just go ahead and bury your dead. Say, no. This is what this is going to establish. Number one, it establishes, what its intended purpose is for. It says, when composing this, Moshe is very adamant about making sure that the location and the deed to the land was reiterated several times in this chapter. For this reason, it needs to be established what this intended purpose was for, which we know what that was for. The amount of money that was paid, the specific location, whose property was purchased from, and that the witnesses that were there ratified this agreement for the sale of this parcel. He's saying basically this: I'm establishing my people in this particular land. I'm going to lock it down and I'm going to pay for it. So later on, and you'll see that the children of actually, I believe it's in 1947, somewhere around that time, that the Ashkenazis go and they establish the land of Israel based on that. They say that that's our land because our father Abraham paid for it. You see how in years, thousands of years later, this is the thing you guys got to get in your spirit about Moshe and the Most High, is that the things that we are reading in that scripture are happening within like your lifetime. That's very serious. That blows my mind. The Torah of Moshe is not only a history of the world, it is the genealogy and activities of the nation, of the children of Israel, the commandments, which are the dictates of the Most High. But now it's something different. It is now a legal document that establishes a parcel of land. When you look at this particular chapter, you're looking at a deed. So this is not just words of somebody on the other side of the street who we followed for the last 3 years of his life in his ministry. We're talking about a body of work that has legal ramifications to it. It's very deep. All right. That wraps up chapter number 23. Straight out of the box, chapter number 24. This is where we start to go up in elevation on this PG-13 level. Okay? Chapter number 24 starts out with the scene of Abraham being very elderly. This is an elderly man. Not that he wasn't elderly already, but he's getting on in age. His attention now. Listen, here's your first clue. We transitioned out of, okay, let me just say this first. His mind right now is, I got to find my son a wife. Ask yourself the question, why in the world is this Parashah set up? Why did Moshe sit there and say, okay, well, this big deal about going and getting this deed, this land, this parcel, and then immediately the next thing we talk about is get Yitzhak a wife? Abraham is very methodical. That's one piece of the puzzle. You'll see the other pieces come together later on why these transitions happen the way they happen. Just not a simple jump of, oh, okay, we bought this parcel of land and I buried my wife and now she's in there. Now, okay, now my next thing to do is get my wife a son. There's a reason why we got to make that connection on why that's there. Okay? Now, his oldest or longest servant that has been with him, he comes and asks him a question. He says, hey, I have this issue and I need to get my son a wife. And I need to make this covenant with you. Okay, about this particular issue. Now, who is this servant? Because in chapter 24, it never mentions his name. So who is he? I have good evidence that I want to present to you on who this individual is. Okay? This individual, let's go all the way back to Bereshit 15:2. Says, Avram, this is before his name was changed, says, Avram replied, Yahweh, Elohim, what good will your gifts be to me if I continue childless? And Eliezer from Damascus inherits my possessions. That's what I think we're talking about here. Eliezer. Okay? Even though he doesn't say his name. We go on to say, Abraham said to his servant who had served him the longest, who is in charge of all that he owned. Don't ever sleep on this comment right here. Who was in charge of all he owned. Put your hand underneath my thigh. Okay. I'm going to look at you because you've been looking intently up here the whole entire time and you have your sword with you. When we go into a courtroom years ago, you go into a courtroom, they say what? When you get up there and you're getting ready to take the stand, they say, put your hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. And give an oath that you won't what? Lie. Why am I putting my hand on the Bible? What's the significance of that? To swear that what? If you don't tell the truth, may something happen to me. We're going to get struck. Okay? So you're swearing on something. If you look at the colloquialism, remember I had said last time when I said the nakedness of your father is also talking about the wife? What this means is when you put your hand under someone's thigh and swear when he's talking to him, he asked Eleazar to put his hand underneath his thigh and grab his testicles and swear. What? He says, swear to me that you will find my son a wife. Why am I putting my hand? Not me personally, oh no. But he's asking him to put his hands on his testicle and swear. Why? Listen. The Most High said to Abraham, listen, I am going to establish your generation in the land of Canaan. That is going to come out of Yitzhak. Okay? Now, I want you to understand that Yitzhak is already born, obviously. So you need to go find me a wife from a particular place. All right? And I'm making you swear because I'm passing this auspicious task on to you. It was commissioned to Abraham that I'm going to make your generations enormous. But now what's happening is he's saying, in order for that to happen, my generation is going to be enormous. My son has to get a wife in order to procreate, and I'm commissioning you to go find her. So this is a serious deal. The generations that come after this are going to be based on the decisions that you make. So swear to me by this that you're going to do what you need to do. First of all, obviously any man asking any other man to do that, it's a big deal in itself just to consider doing it. Nah, I'll do it. I ain't got to go that far. But he wanted to make the impact that this is what this is going to happen, okay? So, Eleazar does what? He responds with a very simple question. I understand the task. You want me to go find your son a wife. Now, when I find your son a wife, here's the question he's asking. He asks, let's say, for instance, that she is unwilling, because he tells him specifically, I need you to go to the land of the Canaan and get her. Why that particular land? Or not the land of the Canaan. He says, do not get her from the land of the Canaan. I need to be very specific. I'm sorry. I'm going a little bit too fast. Do not get her from the land of the Canaan. Make sure you go back to my kinsman and get her. Now, I know all of us have our preferences. We are very, very particular about our kids. All right? Abraham is instructing this guy to go to his kinsman because he knows that at least with his kinsman, this woman is actually going to come from some good stock. At least she understands about the Most High. Okay? He's not going to go from the Canaanite folk where these women are doing whomever and what for and have their own issues going on. I don't want my son hooked up with that kind of stock. Okay? Which goes to say that you parents, I know this is going to get into some taboo issues, so let's get into the first one right there because I'm not afraid of it right there. If you honestly think that, at least from a Hebrew perspective, you don't have a say in who your children are getting ready to hook up with, you got a problem because you do. You need to be very involved about who your children are hooking up with. These are talking about your generations that are coming after you. Okay? So we have the first establishment here of Abraham telling this to his servant. So he asked him, what happens if she doesn't want to return, if I go there and she doesn't want to return? He says, don't worry about it. The Most High is going to send an angel in front of you to clear out all your past so everything will go the way that it needs to go. So nothing is going to interfere with the covenant that the Most High is establishing. Now, we got to establish some things here because there's something else that you got to understand. How old is Yitzhak when all this is happening? His mom, at least, she got pregnant with him when she was at least 90. She died at the age of 120. So he has at least to be 37 years old. Now, I'm not saying that Yitzhak probably didn't have the ability to go pick out a wife. But again, it's this issue of, okay, I need to make sure we get some good stock because he could easily get somebody from the land of Canaan. Let's just make sure he establishes some good stock, okay? And he puts Eleazar in charge of it. And there's a reason why he does that. Eleazar asks, should he then take Yitzhak to the land if she's not willing to return? He says, absolutely not. Why? Because of the prophecy that was given to him, that the establishment of Abraham's generation will be in the land of Canaan. So it's very specific. You have to go get her and bring her back. That's all the instructions that he's given her. He says, if you get over there and she doesn't want to return and says no, then I'm going to release you from your oath. Okay? So he has his criteria. Eleazar took 10 of Abraham's camels with all kinds of gifts. Now, I want to establish something for you real quick with Eleazar. All right? This is the servant to the richest man, wealthiest man around. Do you honestly believe that when he loaded up those camels that they didn't have some goods on them? When Eleazar stepped out, those blades on his feet, because them blades, let me tell you something. Let me give you men a tip, okay? Make sure your shoes are right, okay? Because you can destroy an outfit if your shoes are wrong. When he stepped out, he was impeccable. He's not looking like some hobo walking around. He is dressed to the nines. He is suited and booted. He is gaitered and tailored. That is what he is all the way, okay? Takes 10 camels weighted down with gifts and heads to the land of Nahor. Anybody know anything about Nahor? Who is Nahor to Abraham? His brother. That's right. He heads to the land of his brother. He gets to the land, and it's customary at this particular time in the evening. Everybody knows the cycle of the day. And when the evening falls, we did that when we did Bereshit. That was a whole beautiful thing. In the evening, the women come out and they draw water, which is a good time to see who's there in that particular city. Would be the equivalent of you and your homeboys going to the mall and saying, let's see what kind of girls is in the mall. Right. So he goes to this particular well. And Eleazar makes an if-then statement to Yahweh. He needs a sign. And what is this sign? He asks. He says to Yahweh that he is going to, when he sees the women come out, he's going to pick one out. And he's going to ask her to drop her vase that she's carrying water in. And he's going to ask her for a sip of water. And he wants her to, if she gives him a sip of water, and then after that, waters the 10 camels, then I know that that's the one. Before he gets done talking to the Most High, here comes Rivka out with her jug of water. Now, Eleazar sees her and she is beautiful. This woman is exquisite. It's only part of the story. Okay? He runs up to her, because I'm pretty sure that there were some other gentlemen out there too. So he runs up to her and he says to her, can I have a sip of water? It's the first thing he asked her. Didn't ask her what her name was. He wanted a sip. She lowers the jug. She gives him a sip of water. And then without being prompted, she sees the caravan that he's with. She says, let me go and water the rest of your camels. Now, let me tell you something about camels. That's a camel, right? For all of you that went to school, what's in that camel's hump? What's in the camel's hump? What's in the camel's hump? The back, yeah. What's in that hunchback? What's in this? That little lump. I heard water. All right, I'm split, okay? Just so you know, it's not water. What's in the hump of a camel is fat. That's fat, okay? Now, I gave you the answer already. A thirsty camel can drink up to 30 gallons of water in 15 minutes. This woman has a jug, y'all. She's got 10 camels. She is going back. How long do you think it takes he got a sip, oh, let me water your camels. Goes back, it doesn't even say how far away it was. Maybe it was right there, let's say it was. Goes to the camel, draws the water up, comes back, boom. How many gallons do you think she had on her? Not a lot. Especially if they were thirsty and they were traveling at a maximum. She's hauling. She's working. That is very important, folks. Because I'm going to tell you what that establishes. Because this is where we're going to get a little dicey. Okay? What this establishes is this. Because I got to ask a question. Oh, gosh. Here we go. Getting ready to go on the roller coaster now. All right. Before I do that, I want to establish something here too. Let's get to this verse where we actually talk about it. 25. You see how I get you all built up on that suspense and then I let it go? All right. The girl was very beautiful, a virgin, never having had sexual relations with a man. She went down to the spring, filled her jug, and came up. And that's when I went into that dissertation about what actually happens next. Okay. You ladies, this is why we're going to have a women's meeting in here today. You ladies, when you see a man come into the room and he's at least halfway decent looking, what is your main concern? Does he have any money? No? Okay. Money's a big deal. Let me tell you something. Money is a big deal. When you meet somebody and your girlfriends, you talk to your girlfriends, what are you going to say? What? Thank you. Yeah, exactly. What we would comment over, what'd he do? That's a big deal. The establishment of how a man can take care of you. The establishment of can this man provide you the lifestyle that you are accustomed to or better. Don't think that women aren't looking at that, because they are. Okay? But the question, I'm going to flip the script on you, is this. Or at least let's continue with that idea. So Eleazar is suited and booted, gated and tailored. So she know he got money. All right? So she's not a dumb person. At least she knows, at least at the very least, this guy who's came up to me and I'm being ultra nice to him right now got something. All right? Now, let's flip the script a little bit. I'm going to tell you a secret that men don't tell a lot of women. Now, I'm going to start out with a real question that's probably going to get a lot of eyebrows raised. I'm going to ask the collective, what makes you wife material? What makes a woman wife material? Has anybody, so let's start out even further back than that. Has anybody, for you ladies, sat down with you, your mother or your father, and told you what wife material is? What is it? All the married women should. What is wife material? Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What did you say? Keeping house. Cooking. Wife materials. Service. Your partner. What is wife material?
You never even think of that. You think about how beautiful she is. And everything else is systemic to that.
Yes, I agree with that. Because what's going to grab you is her beauty. What's going to grab you is her beauty. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is getting you, because the last time I checked, women don't ask men to marry them. I got you. Hold on. That's the power a man has over a woman. Is that I control, as the man, I control the marriage relationship. I control whether or not you get married or not. Because the invitation has to come from me. What a woman carries power over a man is intimacy. I can't force intimacy on a woman. Nor can a woman force the marriage relationship on a man. I have to offer that. Just like a woman has to offer intimacy to a man. It's the power play that we have between the two. Okay? But what I'm talking about is when a man initially sees a woman, he says, you know what? You sparked my interest. You look beautiful. You are opulent. You are exquisite. That's great. There are plenty of women that look opulent and exquisite and beautiful. What's going to make me choose you? Oh, wait a minute. Come on. The way she carries herself. What makes her... Yes, I'm sorry, I missed you. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're going somewhere. That's good. Okay. So, have any of you ladies asked a man, what are you looking for when you're looking for a wife? No? I'm going to tell you what. Eleazar does it. Because I don't want you to get wrapped up on the fact that he was looking for a sign. He was looking for her to do something very specific. He was looking, now granted, who is Eleazar? Eleazar is the chieftain of Abraham's household. He's been designated with this ability to go ahead and find his son a wife that has to run a household. She has to be able to exude certain abilities. Let me sum it up and say this. What he was looking for was a woman, and this is something that men, I'm going to tell you what, there's this book that came out, and it's talking about the 5 love languages, okay? A big, huge love language for men is your ability, women, to step in the gap and see a need and fill a need. Service is a big deal for men. It is a super huge big deal, okay? When a man says, oh, okay, this woman is willing to observe what's going on and step into the gap and see what's missing to make the situation complete. That's wife material. That's what he's looking for. He's looking for her ability to serve, to be able to say, even though I'm running this household and I've got all this responsibility, I'm still willing to serve. It's not about your job is to cook and clean. Your job is to say, okay, the food has not been prepared. Oh, let me go ahead and do something. Or if it's the husband, oh, the food hasn't been prepared. Let me go ahead and do something. Let me go ahead and step into the gap. But that's what men are looking for. When we go ahead and make our final decision, that's what we're seeing is what do you do? Do you sit on your butt and do nothing and expect me to do everything? What do you do? That's why it's the stupidest question in the world to me when a man comes up to a woman and says, what do you bring to the table? That is the dumbest question that you can ask because that's not what he's really asking. What he's really asking is saying, what can you do to fill in the gap? Do you see it? Can you see a need and fill a need without me telling you? Okay? There was a hush in Israel. Oh, my goodness. Now, as much as I'm lighting up women right now, I want to light you men up. Okay? Because I'm going to tell you what. Just having money ain't it. Let me tell you that right now. It took me 16, 17 years worth of marriage to figure that out. You don't sit up there with a woman and have a wife and say, your testimony is, I'm a good provider. A woman don't want that all the time. That's only part of the story. A woman needs to feel something. When she sees you, when you come into the room, there's something that has to bubble up inside her about you. She sees your integrity. She sees your honor. She sees your manhood. She sees your leadership. That's the other part that she's looking for. She wants to feel loved. You just saying that you're a provider and you put food on the table is not it. Now, Eleazar has half of the story down already because he's showing this opulence. And she sees what this is about. But she, in return, immediately knows, okay, let me show this brother something that I can serve because I want to be wife material. Okay? All right. Oh, I thought that was going to be a lot harder than it was, but okay, now that we're all friends. All right. All right, moving on. Where are we at here? Now, Rivka makes sure that all of the camels have had their fill, and at this particular point, Eleazar stands in amazement, and what he does then is he goes to his pouch, his satchel, he gets a ring, nose ring, and then he gets some bracelets. Now, puts it on her. She goes back and she runs and tells her mother. The scripture is specific. He says he runs back and tells her mother's household. She didn't tell her mama, didn't tell her brother, didn't tell her dad. She told her mother's household. Only, I can speculate for the only reason why is to say, okay, we have visitors coming in and I need you folks to make sure that this is all set up. Now, prior to that, Eleazar asked her a simple question. This is the second question he asks her while he's out there. And this is funny because I don't think any of you ladies would entertain a man doing this to you. Number one, coming up to you, asking you for a sip of something or whatever you carrying. And then number two, the next question he asks her is, can I spend the night? Do you have a place that I can spend the night and where my camels can sleep? How many of y'all, if a guy come up to you talking about, which that's not necessarily happening, okay? So which is another point that I kind of want to make for the disparity of culture back then versus culture now. And I'm speaking to you ladies because what you're finding probably if you're single in the dating pool is a bunch of males, not men. There's a difference between a male and a man. Okay? And so for you to put your trust into someone and accept that invitation he's going to have to show himself that you're worthy of that office that you decide you want to sit in and preside as the head of. I want to make darn sure you fulfill that criteria. That's why anytime that I hear about issues going on, I always say, do we know what the criteria of man that you're looking for is? Do you even know what the criteria is? Or are you just picking somebody out because you don't want to be lonely? Something to think about. But let's get back to our Parashah. I'm getting off into too many up here like Tony Robbins. Your life is going to be changed if you buy this book. And in this book, it has all the answers to all your marital problems. No, it's not what I'm talking about today. Like, who are you talking to over there? Nobody's even sitting over there. This exemplifies Rivka's compassionate. She's a compassionate person and possessed the entire package. Note that Abraham's criteria was to simply find a wife for Yitzhak. But amongst the people of Abraham's kinsmen. Also, keep in mind that Eleazar was the perfect person to find Yitzhak and find a wife, as he was the grand overseer for Abraham's possessions for his day-to-day operations. He's looking for character traits of a woman. Now, when he goes back, she runs and tells the household. Her brother sees that she has these rings, this ring on in her nose, and that she has these bracelets on. And then he runs out and he goes to meet Eleazar. He wants to meet this dude. Who do you think? So right now, this probably looks like this is an engagement, but an engagement to whom? She's looking at the guy that's giving her this stuff. We know that this is for somebody else. He hasn't even told her about Yitzhak yet. Nobody knows about this. He's like, what are you doing standing outside by this well? Come inside, come inside. Eleazar obviously appealed to Lavan too, because he's like, oh my goodness, look at all these Mercedes Benzes and BMWs. I got a garage for all that over here. Bring them camels on in here. Before there's a meal that's prepared, and this speaks to Eleazar's compassion for the severity, again, of making that oath with Abraham about putting his hands on his testicles and saying, hey, look, we're going to go ahead and make this pact with each other, because a meal is prepared and he will not sit down and eat until he fills in the whole entire family on what's going on. He fills them in. Says, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm doing. Okay? Won't even eat. Because why? The mission isn't complete yet. All he's done is identified the young woman. He hasn't asked her what? Because Abraham has given him specific criteria. She go to the land, which he did. He completed that. The second one is he's now got to get her to come back all the way to the land of the Canaanite. He ain't got that far yet. We're still in that in-between phase. This is what he says to the whole entire family. I am Abraham's servant, which is a beautiful thing because he's rejoicing because of the fact, and I didn't mention that earlier, is that when he asked her, the second question that he asked her is whose daughter you are. Third question he asked her is, do you have a place to stay for us to spend overnight? That's what he asked her. He asked her 3 questions. He didn't even ask her name before he's at her house already. While Eleazar said, he said, I'm Abraham's servant. Yahweh has greatly blessed my master so that he has grown wealthy with flocks, herds, silver and gold, male and female slaves, camels and donkeys. Sarah, my master's wife, bore my master a son when she was old, and she has given him everything he has. My master made me swear, saying, you are not to choose a wife for my son from among the women of the Canaanite, among whom I am living. Rather, you are to go to my father's house, to the kinsmen, to choose a wife for my son. This is where she finds out that it's not Eleazar. It's for Yitzhak. Okay? So imagine that. You probably got the look that you got a look on your face right now. Now this is some arranged deal. I don't even know who this dude is. Okay? The plot thickens, as they say. Eleazar told Abraham, suppose the woman isn't willing to follow me. Abraham replied, Yahweh, it will send his angel with you to make your trip successful. I am to pick a wife for my son from the kinsman in my father's house, which will release me from my obligation under my master's oath. When I come to his kinsmen, if they refuse to give her to me, this too will also release me from my master's oath. That's what he tells them when he's sitting down. So he simply asks the question, after I've told you all of this, what say you? Are you going to allow Rivka to come back with me or not? When I married my wife, prior to, I had to sit down with her dad. And I had to have a little conversation. This is this conversation that's happening now. This is everything that has happened. It's actually probably corroborating the story that Rivka's already told you already, so you're hearing it from my mouth right now. But there's this issue of sitting down with the dad and the family saying, these are my intentions. What say you? Okay? So that tradition that we have now kind of is established in Scripture. When you're sitting down with the parents. And The two people that give their approval are the father and the brother. They give the approval. They don't ask her. They ask the dad, is it okay? All right? Which the dad replies, and this is how we can substantiate that issue that he wanted her to come from good stock. Because what they say is, in their answer is that irrespective of everything else, you've mentioned that this has come from Yahweh himself. Who are we to stand in the way of Yahweh's will? Take her. All right? So they give their approval based on the testimony that Eleazar had about this being all from Yahweh. Now, Eleazar heard this news and he rejoices. He falls on his face and praises the Most High because what? We're almost done with the mission. I've come here. I got the girl. I got the woman. I got the approval. They said we can leave. I can take her back. And we're ready to rock and roll. Okay? So he praises the Most High. The next thing he does is he goes back to his satchels and he does one thing that I know that you women are going to appreciate and like. He starts handing out gifts. All those bags that were on them 10 camels. Here's the clothes. So I'm serious. Listen, you got all this and more. What's behind the third door, Johnny? All that. All that. He starts giving the gifts. And not only does he give the gifts to Rivka, but he gives the gifts to the mother and the father and the brother. The whole entire household gets blessed for this acceptance. All right? Now, Eleazar, mission is complete, somewhat. He's able to eat now, rest, spend the night. Next morning, wakes up, and he says, okay, it's time for us to go. Wait a minute. You just told us about all this going on. You just met her like within the last 12 hours. Now she's leaving? What is this all about? So Eleazar says, listen, I was commissioned to bring her back. My commission was not to go find her, stay 4 or 5 different months, and then come back. It was to go get her and bring her back. And that's exactly what I plan on doing. So please don't delay me because I have to finish this. Okay, I have to finish my oath. Probably one of the reasons why he probably wanted to do this is because, you strike when the iron's hot, number one, okay? And the more and more, the longer he's there, you're probably going to get some influences not to leave a little bit. And that actually comes up because the brother and the mother go to Eleazar and say, wait a minute, can she at least stay 10 more days? He's like, no, we got to go now. They're having this discourse about this. And they say, you know what? Let's do this. Let's bring Rivka in and let's ask her, does she want to leave right now? They ask Rivka, they bring her in, and she says, I want to leave right now. Right now. Do you see what just happened here? All this divine providence that's happened, starting at the well. Do you see this? The emissary to a billionaire came in here and said, boom, 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 and boom. Let me at least go see what this brother looked like. Let me just see what he looked like. We already got the first box checked that he's rich. Now, let's see what else he's got. Let's see if he follows those other categories. Let's see if he shows manhood. Let's see if he shows all these other attributes that will check the box that says that when he actually proposes to me, that I can accept it because you've met this criteria. All right? Now, let's go to as she's leaving, this is what they bless her with. This is what they say to her. Her family, which is prophetic. They don't know anything about, wow. They blessed Rivka with these words. Our sister, may you be the mother of millions. If I had to actually preside over a wedding, I think I would probably say this. May you be the mother of millions. May your descendants possess the cities of those who hate them.
Wow,
Rivka and her maids. Now, her father comes from a house where he's got some money too. She don't leave by herself. When I go to the club with my girls, I ain't going by myself. I'm taking my girls with me. Okay? She goes with her maids. They mounted their camels and followed the man. So the servant took Rivka and they went on their way. This is the beautiful part here. Now, as they're returning, you got to imagine here that Rivka is in a mode of anticipation as they're traveling back. In my mind, as I imagine, people know I'm a pretty creative person. I come up with a lot of different things. But in my mind, I can imagine them around the campfire, and Rivka is querying Eliezer about Yitzhak. What's he like? Who is this guy? This is breath stink. He wear cologne. Is he muscular? How does he treat other people? Asking her questions. On the way back, they're traveling back. Yitzhak is coming home. He lives close to the Negev. And he lives in a land called Be'er Lachai Roi. Now, I wouldn't expect you right off the grip for if I told you where is Be'er Lachai Roi at. You hear that place when Hagar is confronted by the angel, and she says, and the angel tells her about her son Yishmael that she's going to conceive. And that's actually that particular place. And we'll get to that later on, I believe, or maybe I missed it or whatever. We may get to that later on. Yeah, actually, no, we'll get to that later on. So he's coming home from the Negev in this particular area, and he looks up and he sees these camels coming up over the hill or coming down the road or whatever the topography was. And Rivka looks up and she sees him as well. She dismounts her camel, goes over to Eliezer and asks questions. Is that him? Is that him? They meet in the field. Now, what's interesting is how the ending of this chapter is chapter number 24, because we're in Bereshit 24 and 67. It says, and looking, what he did was he saw her, they met, and what he did, he takes, or they go into Sarah's tent. It says he took her and she became his wife. Now, I struggled with this a little bit because what I did was I went ahead and looked in the Hebrew. And usually when intercourse happens, there's this word that's used called yada. It's to know something very intimately. And that word is not used in that particular scripture. It says he took her and she became his wife, which leads you to believe that they had intercourse. And that constituted her becoming his wife. Okay? The word there is not yada. The word there that is used is vayicha, which simply means to take. Like literally, I accept you as my wife. I didn't do anything to you yet. I didn't consummate anything yet. But this is what I have. We're talking. Do you accept the proposal? Yes, I'm becoming your wife. That's when she becomes his wife. He accepts that at that particular point. All right? I don't see when you look in the Hebrew, any words that indicate intercourse actually happened during that particular time. Okay? All right? Now, the chapter ends with this piece, the mastermind, Abraham. It says that Now that Rivka has come, now you got to understand, Yitzhak is torn up about his mother passing. It says that now that he has a wife, he was consoled. In the very next chapter, which again, chapter number 25, this is where we're going to go up a little bit. We might do a little rated R stuff here, but the next chapter starts out with this. And Abraham took a wife. You get it. You get it. Let me explain it to you. Abraham lost his wife. His wife was very pivotal to the community and to his household. The kids, Yitzhak, were tore up about it. Abraham needed a spot to fill. His next thing is I'm going to respect the fact that my kids, my child, which we're saying is Yitzhak, because he actually has more than just Yitzhak, okay? He's got sons by his concubines, okay? I want to respect this. So in order to get his mind off of his mother, I'm talking about Yitzhak, I'm going to go find him a wife. So his mind is somewhere else. As soon as he finds out that the wife is acquired, what is Abraham going to do? He gets married. The whole 3 chapters is not to say a diversion, but what Abraham is doing is he's trying to get the attention. He's trying to respect this issue that says, okay, my wife has died. Instead of going out and marrying somebody else, right now, what I'm going to end up doing is because I know this is affecting the kids, I'm going to go ahead and get Yitzhak's mind off of this. Get him consoled first, so he's right. Once he's right, then I'm going to take another wife. Okay? That's why we start off with chapter 25, and it says, now Abraham marries Keturah. Now, before in the past, we used to say that Keturah was Hagar, or where there was a teaching out there, maybe it says that Keturah and Hagar are the same person, which I would have to allude and say that they're not. Okay? Because when you get down and you look at the lineage of Keturah, which is enumerated in chapter 25, you don't see Ishmael show up anywhere in there. Okay? This is a totally different woman. So what does Abraham have right now? So we got to tackle an issue here. That's a very sensitive issue that's going to probably upset a lot of you. And maybe not, because I don't want to underestimate the people of Yahweh. Okay? This issue is this. Is that Hagar had a son, Ishmael. Sarah had a son, Yitzhak. Abraham, later on in this chapter, finds out that he has concubines, right? So we got to deal with this issue of multiple women. It's a taboo subject. And I know I'm getting a lot of attentive looks right now, but we got to deal with it because it's an issue in Hebrew that doesn't really get talked about, and hopefully I'm going to stay in some safe ground here with this. All right? Now, we call having multiple women or multiple wives what? We call it what? We call it what? Polygamy? Okay, let me educate you on what polygamy is. Okay? Polygamy. Polygamy is an umbrella. Polygamy is an umbrella. What you are referring to as a woman, or I said as a man with multiple women, is called polygyny. A woman with multiple men, which is totally forbidden in Hebrew, is called polyandry. So there's a specific term for the men and there's a specific term for the women, and they all fall under the umbrella of polygamy. Okay? So you got to know which one you're talking about. And we're talking about polyandry, which is one man with multiple women. All right. Oh boy. Polygamy is illegal in all 50 states of the United States. And when I was doing in outlying territories, when I was doing my research on this, there was an article that popped up that said that the United States was going to lift this. I don't know if that's true or not, but for now, all 50 states, the issue of polygamy, the umbrella, is outlawed. Understand that the institution of, let's talk about marriage for a little bit. The institution of marriage in Hebrew is not something that is defined by the state. Nowhere in Scripture will you find two people getting married, going down to the local magistrate, and then have the local magistrate say, "You're married now." You won't find that anywhere. Okay? Although there may be some disputing concerns, the marriage can be brought before the leaders for resolution. Let me back up for a second. Also, based in Scripture, the institution of marriage is not granted by any ruling authority, although disputes concerning marriages can be brought before the leaders. Now, one of these things is when we talk about is if I get jealous as a husband, I can bring this before the leaders and say, okay, I'm jealous of what's going on. I feel like she's cheating. You know, that issue where they go into the tent of meeting and they scoop up some of the dust off the floor and they put it in the thing, and then she has to present herself. If she drinks it, then so on and so forth. So issues like that can be brought before a ruling body of leaders. But the establishment of the marriage is between the man and the woman. Now, for those of you that are having some issues with this, which I know there probably are, there are some scriptural patriarchs that actually had multiple wives. Abraham has had one wife at a time, but then he had concubines as well. Yaakov had multiple wives. King David had multiple wives. Esau, Ezra, and Gideon had multiple wives. Who was the most famous person who had multiple wives? Solomon. Solomon had, it sounds like Saruman off of the Lord of the Rings. According to 1 Kings 11:3, he had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. Now, Solomon is a very wise individual, depicted as being a very wise individual. Adversely enough, Moshe writes in Devarim, which is Deuteronomy 17:17, a man must not take many wives or his heart will be led astray. Okay? He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. So, the title of a wife is built on several scriptural and Torah principles. One, the wife must have some form of acknowledgement, either verbal or written notice. It has to have some form of betrothal. That's what happens in the issue of Rivka and Yitzhak. There's some betrothal that's there. The second part is the consummation. In order to become a wife, you got to have those two things. Okay? Suppose a man marries a woman and consummates the marriage. He has to marry her. She has to accept it and then consummate it. Okay? Then this goes on to say that finds her displeasing. This is this whole issue that I was talking about earlier about going and he becomes jealous of her because he believes that she's cheating. Okay? There are a lot of mitzvos that deal with the woman and her adulterousness. But there really aren't any that deal with a man. Okay? I know this is going to be an area of contention. A very serious area of contention. But the proof is in the pudding. Okay? Now, consider Devarim 24, 1-4, which clearly speaks to this two-part process, which is what I put up there. The obvious question for us Hebrews is whether or not this cultural behavior of our fathers having multiple wives is a violation of Torah mitzvot. That's the question. If we're going to conduct something here, we got to do it in line with what Scripture says. Okay? Now, one could say that this is a violation of one of the 10 utterances, which was one of them is what? Not to be an adulterer. That's in 20 and 13. One could say that. But you got to consider who's talking. This is Moshe who's talking. And he has an extensive knowledge of Torah. Now, I'm going to sum all this up here in a second. Moshe, from his perspective, how I see it, is very neutral on the matter. Okay? In the instance of, for the argument for a polygamous relationship or polyandry, one could cite the following. Multiple patriarchs had multiple wives and concubines noted earlier. And number two, nowhere in Scripture will you find a woman who has multiple husbands. Let me also bring this out too. You don't have the children of Israel unless you have multiple women. You don't have them. There's 2 wives and there's 2 maidservants. All of those women, 4 women, birthed these 12 sons. Okay? So you don't exist as a Hebrew nation unless there are 4 women involved. Know that. Okay? It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's the truth. We all know that. It's evidence. We've read it. Okay? No mitzvot are specifically written towards a man not having multiple wives, although there's multiple mitzvot for a woman not having multiple husbands or multiple partners. In Numbers 5:11 through 14, it says that Yahweh said to Moshe, what did he say? Yahweh said to Moshe, tell the people of Israel, if a man's wife goes astray and is unfaithful to him, that is, if another man goes to bed with her without her husband's knowledge, so that she becomes impure secretly, that there is no witness against her, and she was not caught in the act, then if the spirit of jealousy comes over him, and he is jealous of his wife, and she has become impure, or, for that matter, if the spirit of jealousy comes over him, and he is jealous of his wife, and she has not become, she has not become impure. So basically what this is saying is that if a spirit of jealousy comes over him, whether she's done it or not, he can bring this forward. All I'm doing establishing here is that this is a mitzvot that's dealing with a woman being with someone else. Okay? You should see, I wish all of you out there could look and see that laser beam right on my chest right now for all these women that are in here. I got some heat today. Again, the argument against multiple wives could be made like this. Some of our major patriarchs, if you consider Adam, Noah, and Yitzhak, only had one wife. Okay? The intention for man is to have one wife as designed in the beginning of Adam, which is kind of weird because Adam and Eve were the only 2 there. So there wasn't anybody else. Okay? Adultery is not, someone could say this, adultery is not only for the woman, but it's also for the man as well. Although in most cases, case history points out exclusively it's towards the woman. And you can go to your mitzvot and you can find them. Go look up the 613 mitzvot and go look them up. They're there. All right. Now, I like the way Moshe ends this off because it's at least this particular issue, because he plays the middle ground. I want you to know something, because there are individuals, men, that will probably hear this and be very immature with the information that I'm giving you and give you that a right or a way to go ahead and say, you know what, let's entertain this issue of having this going on, because that's what we're dealing with here. When I told you that, some people are not men, they're males, they'll take this and run with it and use it as a crutch to say, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I want you to understand something. Every time another woman got introduced into the relationship, the woman brought it. It wasn't the man. It wasn't the man. Hagar, what did Sarah say? She said, here, I can't produce. Take my maidservant. This is not done under the cover of darkness. This is done with the wife knowing this is going on, and she's the one that's bringing it. It's not you as the man. Okay? Know that. So you sneaking around, men, thinking you doing something and trying to prove it through scripture is not right. Zero tolerance given for that. You're acting outside of the parameters of what's been set up. Okay? Moshe takes this position to say, okay, it is a consensual thing. If it's going to happen, all parties are involved. And if it does happen, these are the parameters upon which you're supposed to act upon. As a man, if you take on another wife, you got some responsibilities you got to fill up to. Okay? If you decide you want to do that, and it's cool with your wife, that means this. There's a specific scripture written about that. It's in Shemot 21:10. It said, if a man marries another wife and he is not to reduce her food, clothing, or marital rights, if he fails to provide her with these three things, she is to be given her freedom without paying anything. You have a requirement to take care of this woman and give her a lifestyle that is equivalent to what she requires. You just don't take on somebody else. So all I'm saying this is because this is going to jump into a bunch of deep water. And I know this is a sensitive topic, but just understand that there are parameters in Torah that outline if you're going to do this and it's consensual and the woman brings this, here's how you're supposed to act, man. Okay? Now, let's put a big disclaimer on this because I know some people that are watching by way of the stream, and it's probably not the people that are in here, are going to sit there and say, see, this is why you don't need to go to FTF. They're over there teaching having multiple wives and being in a polyandry and all this other stuff going on. I am not telling you to do any of that at all. Let's get that up front first. I'm asking you to act, number one, along the lines of the law, number one. Number two, you need to, if this is going to happen, then there's parameters upon which you need to act upon in order to do so. Okay? And I don't know, quite frankly, any woman that's going to sit there and be like, oh, it's bad. I shouldn't say it's bad enough already. I'm married. I love my wife. But I'm going to tell you what. Taking on another one would be, number one, I don't have the means for it. Number one. Number two, I love you, sweetie. But taking care of a family and a household is a lot of work. It is an extreme amount of work. Okay? It's not for the lighthearted. So let's just put a pin in that and move on. All right. Moshe continues in chapter number 25 by giving credence to the major patriarchs that have come before the lineage of Keturah. And he goes and he enumerates who's a part of her lineage. Moshe then explains that Abraham gave everything to his son Yitzhak. Now understand, at this particular time, Yishmael is not around. They've been sent away. Him and his mom have been sent away. So they only came back together to bury, they came back to bury their father, is what we're going to see here in the future. Now, here again, and later on in this chapter, you are going to see that Abraham had concubines. Because he says, emphatically, Moshe narrates and says, hey, look, Yitzhak is going to inherit everything that I have, but I'm giving the sons of my concubines gifts, and he sent them the way to the land of the Kadim. So they were separated from Yitzhak. Okay? This probably incited an area of contention between Yishmael and Yitzhak, because Yishmael didn't get anything. And I think it's because of every parent's testimony that they have about a wayward child. Abraham said to Yahweh, this is talking about Yishmael, and this probably would have gotten Yishmael some type of inheritance. If only Yishmael would live in your presence. I know that there's probably some people that are saying you got kids and you just like, I just wish my children would look to Yahweh, but they won't. The chapter ends and concludes with Moshe talking about Abraham's life. Abraham dies at the age of 175, which is a ripe old age. He says, full in years, and he was gathered to his people, went and was buried in the cave of Machpelah, where he, right next to his wife, in the land of the Canaanite. I'm going to skip over that. I'm getting ready to close. After, it's kind of interesting how this actually ends, because Ishmael, it goes right into the lineage of Ishmael, and it talks about how Ishmael actually was 137 years old, and then he died. And Moshe does not say that Ishmael lived to a ripe old age, full in years, but does note that he was gathered to his people. Nor does Moshe note that Ishmael being buried in the cave of Machpelah. This is probably going back to this issue, is that Ishmael is a rogue son. What is also interesting is that in this passage of scripture is that Moshe is silent about the age of Hagar and the time of death and the place that she was buried. Moshe concludes the passage of scripture by noting that Ishmael's descendants lived near the land of Shur, near Mitzrayim, heading towards Asher. And this is where all the kinsmen had settled. That actually concludes chapter number 25. So let me sum up some things here. We talked about a lot of different things today. And you probably got a lot of, like, I don't know how I feel about all that today. We talked about polygamy. We talked about Abraham being this mastermind and being very respectful of his child, and making sure that when he did get remarried, and this whole entire thing of what a man is looking for with a woman, kind of relationship issues going on here today. I implore you that as I conclude, search out the scriptures for what they really say. Oftentimes, I will come back and say to a person, do you want to know good news or do you want to know the truth? And I don't, because usually what that's presented as is, do you want to know the good news or the bad news? Bad news nowadays is usually the truth, because you've been taught a certain way and you're getting this news and it's not good. You don't like it. Okay? Search it out for yourself. There's things that I've introduced today from a Hebraic standpoint. I'm not encouraging divisions in relationships. I'm not encouraging things that are outside of relationships to be brought inside the marriage relationship. What I am saying is these are the things that happened during that particular time of Moshe and Yitzhak in their context. I realize we live in a different day and age right now, and the circumstances are completely different. Our Hebrew brothers and sisters, I think Rabbi actually has an individual that he met with in Africa on his first trip who was prescribed to the Hebrew way, who had multiple wives. Okay? What I'm saying is, in that particular issue, just to put a nail in the coffin on that, that is something that is reserved for the woman and the man, and the woman has to bring that issue into the relationship, not the man. Let's get that straight. Okay? The things that and this is the thing that I appreciate, and probably after today, he's probably sitting up here like, now, after you talk today, I got to sit you down for the next 4 months. Because you're not getting up there and talking no more. But at least in regards to that, all I'm trying to do is enlighten and bring out what's in Scripture here and put it in its proper context. A lot of things we're not going to like because they don't conform. I'm led with that. They don't conform to Gregorian calendar 2021 cultural issues. But if you look at it in context from Scripture, this is what was happening. Okay? So we're on good ground. Not introducing anything here to destroy anything. Okay? I just want to make that abundantly clear. All right. Okay? So, I want to make sure, and I'll let a rabbi come up and speak for a little bit after. You good? Okay. So I'm going to actually move into the Arianic benediction and bless you all, and then hand it over to our rabbi. You want to come now? Okay, very good. Good.
Today's lesson covers, as Kohanim has said, some very difficult subject matter. But as the rabbi of the house, I have to affirm and say that the lesson has been brought within the framework of Scripture. We have to take it within the framework of Scripture. We live in a land and a place where the rules that govern the Hebrew nation of Israel in this exile cannot be applied. We are not affirming multiple wives within the household. I've dealt with that situation already under a misnomer and a misunderstanding of how a person was going to go about doing that. Kohanim has established very firmly that the only way that happens is that the woman introduces the woman into the family. This is what Rachel did. Leah, Bilhah, Zilpah. She introduced them into the family. Having multiple wives in a Hebrew relationship is not so that the man can have a better lifestyle. That's not what it's for. But the presentation today was within the framework of biblical scriptural understanding of the Hebrew nation of Israel. If Rachel and Bilhah and Leah rather don't have handmaidens to facilitate the procreation of the sons of Israel, we don't have a nation of Israel. Everything fits within the parameters of the order that the Most High has established. Don't try to outthink the Most High. You're not going to make it. And you're going to make errors. You're going to make mistakes in trying to do so. So until we are redeemed back into the land, hold your position in the exile nation that you are and govern yourselves by the rules that have been established by that exiled nation. We're in exile. I know a lot about what's going to happen in the redemptive area, but there's a lot of things that aren't mentioned. And right now, I'm looking to see Sister Mary. I don't know. I don't know if between now and my day in the dust if I'm going to get married again and be looking for the second wife. I don't know. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Live your life within the parameters of where you are. Let Most High take care of what's the unknown. And be happy in Him and Him alone. Appleton, Kohanim, you did a good job today. You stepped into some deep water, but I think you came out on the other side. And as the rabbi of the house, I'm speaking to you. Please don't take the lesson out of context.
Eloquently put. Very eloquently put. The beautiful part of our Shabbat is when we all as leaders get to bless you all. So I say to you this. Yivarekaka. Yahweh veish mareka. Yair Yahweh panav eleka vihuneka. Yesa Yahweh panav eleka veyasha shalom. May Yahweh bless you. And let's stop there. Bless you. You know what blessings are? It's not gifts. Blessings are continual. That means it continues to keep happening. If I give you a gift, I'm just giving you a gift one time. But blessings continue in the same vein. I'm going to bless you with something. That means you're going to continue to keep doing it. May Yahweh continue to bless you and keep you. May Yahweh lift up His face to shine on you and show you His favor. May Yahweh lift up His face towards you and give you shalom. I say Shabbat shalom to you. Until next time.